Hello everyone, thank you. Season 6, Episode 2. It's not a very big episode, this one. We've got a little bit to cover. We're going to further go back into what we did with our first Jinja 2 template when we did a config snippet and we made a Bgp config. This time we're going to go back over that and hopefully push it out. A little bit to cover, so let's get into it. So what you can find is I've updated the files on Git. Someone actually asked if we can talk more about what gets updated per episode. Thank you for that feedback. Big thumb. That's gold. So what we've updated, you will see an updated play, obviously. You're going to see an updated Jinja 2 template, which is a slight variation from what we did before. You will understand it, and I'm going to talk about it more. Again, everything is up in GitHub presentation. This is Season 6, Episode 2. Again, it's up to you to pull the files down or copy and paste, which you can do in GitHub. Putting it in the respective path is up to you. So let's look at what I've done. There's a new Jinja 2 template, as I alluded to. I've created a new Jinja 2 template that has taken out the comment markers. If you recall, I had some nice hashes, which were comment markers. But when we push them out to a Cisco router, as I see a mosquito, if they wouldn't be interpreted as comment markers in Cisco, they'd actually throw errors. So I've tidied up the template and it's removed the comment markers, and there was 1 or 2 lines of Cisco config code that aren't applicable to the older stuff. So it's just a slight variation. Goals for this one. Again, thanks Brian for talking about goals. We're going to create a single play that will take the Jinja 2 rendered Bgp config snippet and we'll push that directly to our CPE fleet, which sadly is only 2 routers, but imagine that it's 200. We're not going to open up as a technician or an analyst the config file. We're going to trust our data. Remember, garbage in, garbage out. So we've taken the good time to put in some good data to our host file files. So it's going to be rendered, and then we're going to have a second task in the same playbook, which is going to push that out to the routers. Goal 2 is to log into our route server. You don't need to understand what the route server is. It's a trusty Raspberry Pi. We have free range routing installed, which is it's an open source routing protocol platform. It's excellent. Feel free to go check that out. And it's going to mimic both Telstra and Vocus in our pseudo little lab, because I don't have enough kit and I don't have enough memory in the laptop to drive more virtual machines. And goal 3, there is no goal 3. This is just a quick one. So let's look at making the template first of all. So if you see up in GitHub, or if you press pause and want to type, I've created the file. It's rather lengthy, so I'm not going to type it out here. But please feel free to copy and paste to Ansible templates, and I've called this one Season 6 Episode 2 _BGP _template.j2 because it is a Jinja 2 file. It is our template. Excellent. The Ansible play. I'm going to cover this shortly, but again, it is up in the presentation file folder also. Season 6 Episode 2 files plays Season 6 Episode 2. Sorry, my nose is so itchy. Don't you hate that at the most awful time? So whilst you have a good laugh there's the file. Now what we're going to do differently, and I'll talk about this as I type it out. We got up to here before, just the one play, and we took our Jinja 2 template and we rendered it successfully to this path here where we had what's CPE01.bgp and CPE02.bgp. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use our friend the iOS config module to take that file and essentially spit the output to the routers. You may recall before when we had iOS config, we would specify lines of configuration arguments, such as the host name or an interface with the parent, an NTP, something like that. This time we're just going to take the file and we're going to throw it over there. It doesn't actually move the file. It will actually if you can think of catting the file out, it will open up the file and just spit the output of that file on the other end. So it doesn't move the actual file itself, because the iOS would think, what is this that you're doing? It just leverages it. So without further ado, it is time to move me to under the sea, and let's type. So what we're going to do is we're going to run a new play. So first of all, we're going to open up Sublime. So here is the BGP template, Season 6, Episode 2 template. I've pretty much copied and pasted. Well, I actually wrote it, but you would have copied and pasted. So I can save that off. And notice where I've saved it. Ansible, templates, Season 2. And that's important because we do reference it shortly. So let's create our play. It's a playbook that has 2 tasks in it. Let's declare, I got a new keyboard, by the way. Well, my old one broke, so I had to go scavenging through the daughter's collection. This is indeed a YAML file. Let's give this playbook a name. Season 6, episode 2 playbook, which is build file with Jinja 2, if I could spell, and deploy with iOS config, our trusted friend. We are going to host CPEs, gather facts. No, we do not wish to gather facts. Connection is local. Tasks. As I said, this is going to be... My nose is itchy again. I had a shave. That's partly the reason why. Tasks. Name. And the first task will be called Task 1, funnily enough, build Bgp Config snippet to local file. And this is something we have done in the last episode, which I should have just copied and pasted to save time. We are leveraging the template module. Template module has an argument of source. And to save a little bit of time, whether or not this actually saved time with the slowness of having 3 screens, that's up for debate. However, note, that's the file that we just saved there, that bad boy. So we're taking that source file. The template module has another argument of where do you want the rendered configs or rendered file pushed to. Voila, we want it there, which will be in our outputs directory. And we want to delegate to local host. Now remember the last one, I wrote localhost, like living la vida loca. I am a great singer. Maybe the songbird of my generation. Okay, the second task in our playbook of awesome. Name, funnily enough, task 2, and this time we want to deploy the Bgp config snippet via iOS config. Excellent, we should be able to see that pretty easy. iOS config, remember our friend iOS config module. I hope you do. If not, Season 5 is flooded with iOS config. It's just something we use for Cisco. If you were using Arista, you'd be using iOS config. If it was Juniper, Junos config, so on and so forth. And the iOS config. This time, like I said, we're supplying a path to a folder as opposed to lines of arguments. Source. Now we know where the source is. because it is the destination of this one here. Copy, paste. Syntactically, syntax is syntaxico. That's just something I made up. Okay, save. Now let's go to our friend activities 2. Now remember the path, pwd. That's not the path. We want to go into Ansible. Excellent. Let's clear the screen a little bit. So now we want to run the play, and that will be Ansible-playbook, path to our inventory we've been using for this project, inv.yaml, and the path to the play, which is plays, and we save that one as play, season 6, episode 2.yaml. So we've said this 2 things are going to happen here. Config is going to be rendered locally. We've achieved that in season 6, episode 1. The second part of this play, it's going to go and deploy it to what CPU01 and what CPU02. So we should see these things happen. And we'll also go and check the outputs folder as well. Let's execute. The first part should be quick. Excellent, because that's been executed locally. Now the next part is it's taking these rendered configuration files and it's pushing them to the 2 CPEs, as we can see here, what CPU01 and what CPU02. Excellent. Receipt of works. We have some high level of awesome completed there. Let's quickly go over to Sublime and we'll just check the folder. Where did I put Sublime? There we go. Straight in front of me. Excellent. And you can see where I took out the comments, because if we look at old, okay, I've deleted it. That's awesome. When you want to display something and you realize it's not there. But the config has run. It's rendered. It looks actually quite nice. And I'm going to show you a trick later so you don't have this repetition. It would actually do it under there. But I digress a little bit. So what we should do now is go in and validate this actually has worked. And the best way to do that is if we go to, we can log into the routers themselves, or I have a route reflector server running free range routing. If I can make the screen small enough. I changed my video stuff before. Okay, so I'm on the Raspberry Pi. So we should sudo to, you don't need to know this part. All I'm going to prove is that it has actually worked. Okay, this is now free range routing. So if we show IP BGP summary, now for you people that don't understand networking, what I'm showing is that a session has, well, 2 sessions per router has formed to my pseudo ISP. I have to be careful with the word pseudo. Pseudo ISP. So this device should have 2 BGP sessions to each router. Excellent. So ignore the never part for now. What we're seeing is a BGP session to what CPU01, what CPU02, and that's that fake Telstra circuit, and what CPU01, what CPU02 on our fake Vocus, the lasers circuit. So if we actually refresh that, it may have come up that Never Land. Remember, it is running on a Pi. The resources are not good. I'm actually going to take that as configured. Meh. And if we actually fire up another terminal session, I will actually log in and I will show that this configuration has been pushed out. So we SSH, if you can remember from our inventory file, please feel free to check sysadmin-gb at 100.61.0.101 is what CPU01. Our ever trusty password, Cisco123 and Cisco123. Now what we want to do is not only just, we'll show run section, if I can spell, BGP. And what we'll see is the BGP config that will be identical to what we had in the configs, or the config files. Excellent. that is in there. And we can show IP BGP sum. Great stuff. And it's done that. So if you can recall, AS 65001 was our fake Telstra, 65002 was our fake Vocus, and they're the respective IPs on my Raspberry Pi that we'd really be struggling about now. So what have we learnt in this one? This one didn't take too long. This one, it's 15 minutes. It's actually gone longer than I thought. We've looked at combining and rendering configurations, pushing them out with the iOS config in a multitask playbook. We've briefly touched a little bit on also a good new friend that you may make in free range routing, an open source Linux port. And if you are interested, feel free on your Pop Linux box, or if you've got a Raspberry Pi, sudo snap install FRR. When I played football in France, it was FFR, and I keep getting, even when I type it these days, it's the Fédération Française Rugby. I keep getting mixed up. Anyway, we've done some great stuff. I'm about to bump the complexity up. We're going to start talking about some conditional statements in our Jinja 2 templating. I stayed away from it thus far. I could have taught it at the first episode, but I think I would have lost a few of you. Because remember, this is a 101 to network automation. So on that note, I hope I've covered everything off. Any questions? Feel free to hit me up on Twitter, Facebook, Google+. No one uses Google+. Or LinkedIn. I don't really use that anymore either. Anyway, have a great one all. Cheers, bye.